I was folding a sweater in the Forever 21 where I worked part-time during my last year of law school when I first encountered Karen. I should mention that this wasn't just any part-time job for me. My family owns a significant commercial real estate portfolio, and I was actually there doing research for my thesis on retail lease agreements and tenant rights. Working the floor gave me insights you just can't get from paperwork. But to everyone else, I was just another college student earning minimum wage. Karen stormed in that Tuesday afternoon like she owned the place, which, as I would later discover, was something she genuinely believed about most establishments she entered. She was probably in her early 50s, with that particular haircut that has become iconic, you know the one, and she was already on her phone complaining loudly to someone about the parking situation. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this story of entitled people getting exactly what they deserve, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to Karen Eat World. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when this Karen finally meets her match. Hit that notification bell too, because we've got more stories of Karens facing consequences coming your way. The store was moderately busy, nothing unusual for a weekday afternoon. I watched as Karen made a beeline for our clearance section, which was admittedly a bit messy since we'd just gotten a new shipment that morning. This is unacceptable. Look at this disaster. Where's your manager? This is the worst store I've ever seen and I've been shopping here for years. How do you people expect me to find anything in this absolute mess? She wasn't talking to anyone in particular, just announcing her displeasure to the entire store. My coworker Jessica, sweet girl who was actually studying to be a teacher, approached Karen with a smile. Hi there, can I help you find something today? Karen looked her up and down like she'd just offered her garbage. You can help me by doing your job and organizing this disaster. I shouldn't have to dig through piles of clothes like I'm at some kind of thrift store. This is ridiculous. Get your manager. Now. I decided to intervene before Jessica got more upset. She'd already been reduced to tears twice that week by difficult customers. I'm the shift supervisor today, how can I help you? I kept my voice level and professional. Karen's eyes lit up, the way they do when entitled people think they've found someone with enough authority to punish. Finally, someone with some sense. I want to know why this store looks like a tornado hit it. I'm a platinum member of your rewards program and I spend thousands of dollars here every year. This is completely unacceptable. I explained that we'd just received our shipment and our overnight team had called in sick, so we were a bit behind on reorganization, but we'd be happy to help her find whatever she needed. This was apparently the wrong answer. Karen launched into a 15-minute tirade about customer service standards, respect, and how back in her day, stores knew how to treat their valued customers. I let her finish, apologized for the inconvenience, and again offered to help her shop. She eventually started pulling items off racks, creating an even bigger mess, which I quietly cleaned up behind her. This became her pattern. Karen would come in 2 or 3 times a week, always during my shifts. I started to realize she'd actually checked the schedule that was posted by the register and was timing her visits for when I was working. She'd demand to speak to me specifically, complain about various issues, make enormous messes, and then either buy nothing or purchase a single item before requesting to return it the next day. After a few weeks of this, I mentioned it to my actual manager, Tom, who told me that Karen had been doing this for over a year, cycling through employees until they quit or requested schedule changes to avoid her. Why don't we just ban her? I asked Tom during a quiet moment. He sighed deeply, the sigh of someone who'd been through this conversation before. Her husband is some big-shot lawyer. Last time we tried to refuse her service, she threatened to sue us for discrimination. Corporate got involved and basically told us to just deal with it unless she does something actually illegal. Making messes and being rude isn't enough, apparently. That's when I got interested, truly interested. See, my specialty in law school was contract law and consumer protection statutes. I'd spent 3 years studying the exact legal frameworks that govern places like this. I decided to do some research on Karen. It wasn't hard. Her husband, Richard, was indeed a lawyer, but more specifically, he handled personal injury cases, mostly car accidents and slip and falls. Successful, but nothing that would particularly scare a retail corporation. Karen herself didn't work but sat on several local boards and was apparently notorious at the country club for complaining about everything from the temperature of her soup to the thread count of the towels. The situation escalated about 2 months into Karen's focused campaign against me personally. I was helping a teenage girl find a dress for her school dance, actually doing the job I was there to do, when Karen appeared. She walked right up and interrupted mid-sentence. "I need help. Now. Not in 5 minutes, now." I politely asked her to give me just a moment to finish with my current customer. Karen's face turned an impressive shade of red. "Excuse me? Do you know who I am? I spend more in one visit than that child has in her entire life. You'll help me right now or I'll make sure you're fired before the end of the day." The teenage girl looked mortified and whispered that it was okay, she'd come back later. I felt terrible but turned to Karen. "What do you need help with?" She smiled, victorious. "I left my credit card here yesterday. I need you to look for it. Check everywhere. It's a platinum card, so it's important." I went to our lost and found, checked the register area, asked the other employees, nothing. I told Karen we didn't have it and suggested she might want to call her credit card company. "That's it? That's all you're going to do? You people probably stole it. I want you to check every single dressing room, look under every piece of clothing in this entire store. I'm not leaving until you find my card." I explained that we'd checked everywhere it would logically be and that standing around wasn't helping anyone. She could file a report with mall security if she thought it was stolen. Karen pulled out her phone and called someone. "Richard? Yes, I'm at Forever 21 and they've stolen my credit card and are refusing to help me find it. Can you believe this? The shift supervisor is being completely unhelpful and actually accused me of lying." She hadn't accused me of that at all, but I stayed quiet. "Yes, please do. I want her fired." 20 minutes later, our district manager, Patricia, called Tom's cell phone. He hung up and looked at me apologetically. "Karen's husband called corporate and threatened some kind of legal action. Patricia wants you to personally search the entire store for her card." So I did. I spent 2 hours going through every rack, every dressing room, every corner of that store while Karen sat on one of our display couches, watching and making comments. See how easy that was? All you had to do was actually do your job in the first place. Maybe now you'll think twice about how you treat important customers. I didn't find her card because, as she mentioned casually when I finished, "Oh wait, I think I used a different card yesterday. It might be in my car. You can stop looking." She got up and left without even checking her car, which I could see from the window. She just drove away, laughing. That night, I made some calls. See, my family doesn't just own commercial real estate, we own the management company that oversees about 40% of the retail spaces in our region, including a significant portion of this particular mall. I'd been deliberately keeping that quiet because I wanted the authentic experience for my research, but Karen had just made this personal in a way that required a different approach. I called my mother, who serves as the CEO of our family's holdings. I explained the situation and asked a simple question about the specific terms of Forever 21's lease agreement in this location. The answer was even better than I'd hoped. The mall had a clause that allowed them to terminate any tenant's lease with 90 days' notice if that tenant created documented patterns of harassment toward mall staff or other tenants, or if security incidents related to that tenant reached a certain threshold. Forever 21 didn't have any such incidents on record, but I realized Karen was giving me everything I needed. I just had to document it properly and then provide her with enough rope to hang herself. I started keeping detailed logs. Every interaction, every complaint, every mess she made, I documented with times, dates, and witnesses. I had Jessica and other coworkers do the same. I also started wearing a small camera on my name tag, which is completely legal in our state with the posted notices we had about surveillance for loss prevention. Over the next month, I collected an impressive portfolio of Karen's greatest hits, her screaming at employees, her deliberately knocking over displays, her blocking aisles so other customers couldn't shop, her following staff around making comments just loud enough to hear about their appearance, intelligence, and competence. But I needed something more, something definitive. That came on a busy Saturday afternoon. Karen came in and immediately started complaining that we'd rearranged the store, which we had, because retail stores do that periodically. This is ridiculous. How am I supposed to find anything? You people do this on purpose to confuse customers. I want this fixed. Put everything back the way it was. I explained that the layout was corporate's decision and we couldn't change it. Karen started pulling clothes off racks and throwing them on the floor. If you won't make this store navigable, then I'll just have to reorganize it myself. This is what happens when you don't listen to your valued customers. Other shoppers were starting to leave. Tom came out from the back and asked Karen politely to stop or we'd have to ask her to leave the store. You can't kick me out. I'm a paying customer. I'll sue this company for everything it's worth. My husband is a lawyer. Tom, bless him, stood his ground. Ma'am, you're disrupting other customers and destroying merchandise. I need you to either shop appropriately or leave. Karen smiled and did something I wasn't expecting. She grabbed a handful of jewelry from a nearby display and stuffed it into her purse, right in front of us. Then she started walking toward the exit. Oops, I guess I forgot to pay for these. But you can't stop me, can you? That would be assault. I know my rights. Tom looked at me, panicked. In our state, retail employees aren't allowed to physically stop shoplifters, we can only call security. But this was perfect. I pulled out my phone and called mall security, calmly describing the situation while Karen stood in the doorway, taunting us. That's right, call security. My husband will have this entire mall shut down for harassment. You have no idea who you're messing with. Mall security arrived within 2 minutes. Karen actually seemed surprised when they showed up. Officers, thank goodness you're here. This store is trying to falsely accuse me of shoplifting. I was going to pay for these items. This is harassment and discrimination. The security guards, who I'd actually met with earlier that week to give them a heads up that something might happen, asked her to empty her purse. She refused. They called the actual police. Now, Karen started to look less confident. This is ridiculous. I'm a respected member of this community. I volunteer at the library. I'm on the hospital board. You can't treat me like some common criminal. The police arrived and the situation became official. They asked Karen again to show them the contents of her purse. She refused and demanded to call her husband. They let her. Richard showed up 15 minutes later, looking annoyed and confused. The police explained the situation and Richard looked at his wife with an expression I can only describe as exhausted recognition. Karen, what did you do? She launched into her victim narrative, but Richard had apparently been down this road before. He convinced her to show the officers her purse. Sure enough, about $300 worth of jewelry that still had security tags attached. The police asked if we wanted to press charges. Tom looked at me. I nodded. Karen was arrested for retail theft right there in the middle of the mall on a Saturday afternoon. People were recording on their phones. It would probably be on social media within the hour. As they walked her out in handcuffs, she was screaming about lawsuits, about how she'd destroy this store, about how we'd all regret this. Richard just looked tired and apologized quietly to Tom before following the police car to the station. But here's where my legal knowledge really came into play. That arrest report would be public record. Combined with my documentation of her behavior, I now had exactly what I needed. I compiled everything into a comprehensive file: harassment documentation, witness statements, video evidence, police reports, everything. Then I scheduled a meeting with mall management, except this time I wasn't coming as a part-time Forever 21 employee. I was coming as a representative of my family's real estate management company, which technically had oversight authority over tenant relations and mall operations. The meeting included the mall's general manager, their legal counsel, and representatives from Forever 21's corporate office. I presented my documentation and made a formal complaint, not against Forever 21, but against the mall's failure to provide adequate security response to a pattern of harassment that had been reported multiple times. I pointed out that under the lease agreements, the mall had an obligation to maintain a safe shopping environment for all tenants and their employees. I suggested that perhaps a review of all security incidents over the past 18 months might reveal some concerning patterns. The mall's lawyer got very quiet because they knew exactly what I was implying. If we found that the mall had failed to respond to documented harassment complaints, it could affect not just Forever 21's lease, but potentially others. I wasn't actually threatening litigation, I was just being thorough in my analysis, as someone who'd spent 3 years studying exactly this type of commercial law. But the implication was clear. Then I mentioned almost casually that I'd been doing research on customer behavior patterns and had discovered something interesting. Karen's husband Richard was actually the registered agent for the mall's largest liability insurance provider. Not a direct conflict of interest, but certainly an interesting relationship that might explain why Karen had felt so confident that her behavior would never have consequences. Corporate relationships like that should probably be disclosed, shouldn't they? Especially if they might affect how security incidents were handled? The mall's general manager suddenly became very interested in resolving this situation. Within a week, Karen received a certified letter informing her that she was permanently banned from the entire mall property, not just Forever 21, but every single store, restaurant, and business in the complex. The ban was based on the police report, the documented harassment, and the need to protect mall employees and other customers. Any violation would result in trespassing charges. But I wasn't done. See, during my research, I discovered that Karen was actually on the board of the local library, which was located in a building that, you guessed it, my family's company owned. The library had a strict code of conduct for board members, including provisions about criminal behavior and anything that might bring disrepute to the institution. I made sure that Karen's very public arrest, complete with social media videos, came to the attention of the library board's ethics committee. Not directly, of course. I simply mentioned to a friend who volunteered there that they might want to be aware of a concerning incident involving a board member. The news spread naturally from there. The hospital board where Karen volunteered? That facility leased their parking structure from a company my family had a partnership agreement with. Hospital boards are very sensitive about reputation, especially when it comes to anything involving theft or harassment. Again, I didn't have to do anything directly. The arrest report was public record. The videos were online. People talk. Within a month, Karen had lost her position on both boards. The country club, which rented its event space from, Surprise, another property in our portfolio, quietly suggested that perhaps Karen and Richard might be more comfortable at a different club. Not a ban, just a gentle suggestion that their membership might not be renewed next year. But the absolute masterstroke came from Forever 21 itself. Corporate had been so impressed with my documentation and handling of the situation that they offered me a position in their legal compliance department after graduation. I accepted. And one of my first projects? Developing a comprehensive corporate policy for handling serial harassment from customers, complete with a database system that would flag repeat offenders across all stores nationwide. Karen's information, including her photo and the incident reports, was entered as case study number 1. She was now banned from every Forever 21 location in the country. Richard ended up quietly dropping the mall's insurance company as a client, probably realizing that the relationship had become more liability than asset. The mall, no longer worried about that particular connection, became much more aggressive about enforcing their codes of conduct. They even installed new security cameras with better coverage, which I'd suggested in my report. I ran into Karen one more time about 6 months later. I was walking through a different mall across town, now dressed in my business attire as a corporate legal compliance officer, when I saw her. She saw me too, and her face went through a remarkable series of expressions: recognition, anger, fear, and finally, defeated understanding. She turned and walked quickly in the other direction. I heard later through the retail gossip network that Karen had tried to shop at several stores in that mall and been recognized by staff who'd seen the videos or heard the stories. Word travels fast in retail. Nobody wanted to be the next victim of her harassment, so they'd watch her extra carefully. She could never prove discrimination because the service was always technically polite, but the message was clear. She wasn't welcome. The last I heard, Karen and Richard had moved to a different state. A fresh start, probably. Though I have to wonder if Karen learned anything from the experience, or if she's currently terrorizing retail workers somewhere else, blissfully unaware that a simple search of her name brings up those videos of her being led out of Forever 21 in handcuffs. The teenage girl who'd been shopping for a dance dress that day? She came back to the store a few weeks after Karen's arrest and I helped her find the perfect outfit. She told me she'd been so intimidated that day that she'd almost not come back, but seeing that someone finally stood up to that mean woman had given her courage. That moment made everything worth it. If you enjoyed watching this Karen get exactly what she deserved, make sure you've hit that like button and subscribed to Karen Eat World. We've got plenty more stories of entitled people facing the consequences of their actions. Drop a comment below telling us about your worst Karen encounter, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss an epic revenge story. Thanks for watching, and remember, karma might be slow, but justice can be surprisingly efficient when you know the right laws to reference.